Okay, so you are on camera, so go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Wendy. I'm one of the reviewers for Rainbow Gold Reviews, and I'm here talking with Stephan Knox about his book, Dhragain, or Dragon's Breath. Welcome, Stephan, and thanks for talking with me today.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to turn the phone around so it's now zoomed in on me. And I can't, it's hard for me to go back and forth, but I will try to put you on especially. We're having technical difficulties here today. Okay, we had a plan. We had a plan. And it just didn't work out. So we're ad-libbing so that we can still do this and everything. But I got to tell you, she's such a lovely looking woman and everything. She's a sweetheart. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to do this with you. This is exciting.
All right, so take the show, Wendy.
Okay, I will. I would like to know what inspired you to write a historical fantasy.
I've always planned to do it. I'm since I was a kid, I've kind of pretty much done historical fantasies and post-apocalyptic fantasies. Those are my favorites.
Wow.
So I'd always had projects in the process, but this one in particular, this one was because of my best friend. He's married, gay, and he loves historical fantasies, and we've shared a lot of books, because we like a lot of the same authors and stuff. And he was actually getting frustrated with some of the other books that were being put out in the gay fiction, where he thought he was getting a historical with sword fights and castles, and would be very disappointed that it was all just fluffy romances and all, and he was getting really, flustered about it. And so finally he came to me, he's like, write me a fucking book. and so I said, all right, okay, fine. So I agreed that I would, and so I started wondering, it's like, okay, historical, okay, I'm going to go into the European, Middle Ages, kind of, sort of in that area, and I kind of put these thoughts out to see, what was going to bite on the hook. Right. And he didn't care if there was no sex or romance. That wasn't important. There had to be sword fighting. There had to be immense world building, and the main character had to identify gay, even if there was no romance or sex. So those were the rules. So then I decided, it's like, since I really didn't want to deal with foreign language, I decided, okay, I'll go with England, or British history, and then I started wondering, it's like, well, God, the Roman occupation, that might be a really cool time to write about. So I started looking into it, and then I realized that there's like this huge real estate of unknowns in that history, because historians still don't know a lot of what went happen, because the Celts didn't write a damn thing down. And the Romans didn't actually chronicalize their presence there until 500 BC, which is actually 150 years after they left.
Oh, wow.
So there's like a lot of holes, and I'm like going, hey, I kind of like that. And then it all butts right up to where the legends of King Arthur start. And I'm like going, that's it. That's my area. And that's where I went. And the opening scene to Dhragain is the actual first scene I ever wrote for that book.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I can tell a lot of research went into this book. Can you tell a little bit about the process of blending all your fact-finding and fiction? I know you touched on it a little bit there with the little empty space or the big empty space that you could just kind of fill. Was that like a big part of?
Yes and no, because I mean, really, with all those empty spaces, I used research from other areas around that had better historical chronicalizing or research that was done to fill in a lot of the gaps. And also because the British Celts were tribal communities then, I used some of my Native American history of tribes, of how tribes actually work.
Very cool.
And that plays a role in there. A lot of people don't realize the connection of tribal life and all, unless you've been in it. So that came in really helpful. But also in most recent years, researchers have been finding like all kinds of cool stuff that they're still working on and they're still trying to understand. But I use that as well. Like, I mean, there's a number of people that are going throughout Europe with these X-ray machines and the monostats, and they're just riding over fields. And they're finding all kinds of structures. There's castles and buildings and big baths and even the Neolithic findings that are buried under farmland that nobody ever knew existed. So I really used that to my advantage. So there's going to be, so in the book there are towns and castles and circles that, someone had said, well, there's no such thing. I'm like going, that was an awfully long time ago, and actually one was found. Another one I did create, but I suggested because I talked about somebody was quarrying one of the Neolithic sites. They were quarrying it to make bricks out of it, and that was done a lot, throughout our history. Somebody else new comes along.
That way, right?
Huh?
Man, that's kind of a shame that a lot of things are lost that way.
Absolutely, but I mean, it was done everywhere, even in Egypt.
Sure.
They started taking the temple of Hathor is actually got bricks from 3 different other archaeological sites.
Wow.
They borrowed bricks everywhere. So yeah, I mean, I used that to show that it's not necessarily, who's to say it's fiction? It could have been there, but it's now buried or it got dismantled at some point. So I used a lot of that to fill in. And then with paganism goes hand in hand with the mysteries of the world and all. So rather than having this big lumbersome physical dragon of scales, the dragon showed up in spiritual form, in a sense, and all. Yet it was very, very much real. The other thing is that because of history, was written largely from Christian conquerors. They heathenized everything before them, and to say that British Celts were barbarians and heathens. I mean, there's one British historian who went as far as to say that they were such dotes that they didn't even have a spoon. I'm like, that's the most absurd thing in the world, because Neanderthals had fucking spoons.
Right.
So I mean, I went against stuff like that. So that's really how
you did a wonderful job with it. You really did. Was there a favorite or a most interesting to you piece of information that you came across in your research?
One which I just mentioned on was the religious judgments and how that has suppressed so much history.
Yes.
Paganism is such a rich and wealthy religion or spirituality, however you want to view it.
And it's diverse too, and it is. So many different gods and goddesses, and yes,
absolutely. And the thing is that even with like there are so many different names for the gods and the goddesses, at the same time they were all the same. They understood
exactly.
that there's one goddess and there's one god, but we have many names and facets of how we relate, because we are much smaller than the God creator there is, and that was what paganism was. It was very earthbound, very culturing or protective of nature and creation, and allowed for even the most simple-minded to be able to relate. So it was nice to be able to do into that, but also having to fight against religious suppressions, in the way history was worded. And then, of course,
and
finding
the religions too. They all kind of played a big part in the strategies during a lot of those battles.
Yes. And then, of course, the other thing that was really interesting was finding out about all these Neolithic and castle structures that they're just now finding nowadays. That was, like, really cool. And
right? How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, there's one that they just recently found within a year that was a mass grave of about 50 Vikings that's in Cumbria. So, in Nevin's book, in the prequel, he just might have had something to do with that. I don't know. It's like, I don't want to give too much away because he's a badass. And I'm like, I don't want to, implement him on any crimes and anything. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So now, okay, serious question here. Singing in the shower, yes or no?
I don't know. I'm kind of busy taking care of personal things. Is that too much? I don't think I sing at that climax moment, and it's more of a.
Is your humming tune or not? That's what we all want to know.
Oh, but wait a minute. I've got it. I do have a funny story, and I have to tell it. It's like, okay, this is the funny story that's relating to writing of the book, and it was and it had to do with someone had asked me just recently, how was I able to create such a vivid attack on the olfactory on some of these scenes. And it's like, okay, so the answer is my dog's the answer. My dog has an exhaust system that can clear a castle at times. and then there was one particular night when I was working on a battle scene, and it was storming outside with a lot of thunder and lightning, so that meant he was under my desk.
Oh.
And he was also putting out some noxious explosions that had my eyes burning with tears. My nose was desperately attempting to hack itself off my face so it could run away and escape. Oi, 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 oi. And my lungs were completely shriveled to ashen husks that made the details of my battle so rank and scent-of-wide, olfactory disgusting. So, yeah.
There you go. You got to have something to kind of relate to. Now, Dragon's Breath is your first book under the pen name Stephan Knox. Is this a road that you're going to continue?
Originally it wasn't. It's supposed to be a one-time book. And it was not supposed to have any kind of extenuation whatsoever, because there was no way I was going to tempt fate by going into the legends of King Arthur. I just didn't want to go there, Right. That's almost as bad as going into I just went completely brain dead into.
I love seeing. I've seen recently now a lot of new takes on some old stories, old myths, old fairy tales, old fact.
Right.
And it's just, people adding their own little take on it and turning it into fiction. And
yeah, but see, I don't like alternate reality type stuff. I mean, if you do, then you go completely fiction. But if you're going to go historical, stay plausible within it. And,
right.
like, granted, my characters were 100% fictitious, but it was plausible how it fit in with the reality
really
that
you,
was
you
there.
You did a brilliant job of blending and world building.
Yeah. But yes, but as you know, to answer the question, while no, I didn't intend to continue on. When we were in the final editing stage, Neven Pendragon, who was the father of the Pendragon family,
yes,
he ended up popping in my head with some backstory that I didn't know anything about, that just completely blew me away. Ooh. And after spending time with my editor, we realized that I needed to add some hints into this book. So I ended up writing some scenes in, which ended up adding another 40,000 words into the book itself. And yes, there is a prequel in the works for this one.
Awesome, awesome. So is that what's next for you?
Yes and no. I mean, I still write under another different Pendragon, or another pen name. And I have to catch up on some stuff there. But yes, this one's already in the works. But I also have, I have a previously published book that was post-apocalyptic sci-fi that was released under my original name, and then I pulled it. It did not go well with my romance readers, and so it's getting a revisal, and then it'll get released under Stephan. But I also have two massive projects that I've been working on for a couple of years now that eventually will come out. Just everything that I write under Stephan it takes years to write. So we're not going to see, you know, oh, he put out 3 books, you know, this year. That will never happen. I have to tell you,
I'm happy to know that things are going to kind of continue, but I'm also happy to know that there wasn't like this huge cliffhanger that we have to wait a couple of years for the next.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing you don't do when it takes this long to write the books. You don't put the cliffhangers in, and all. I'm sorry. I'm a fan of cliffhangers. I love them
too. I am
when they work, but not when it takes 3 or 4 years to write a book. Obviously, it's not fair.
Kind of put it in the back, and yeah, definitely. So, is there? I'll be adding in my review. I'll be adding places for people to be able to get a hold of you, Facebook and such. Is there anything that you wanna add?
I don't have Twitter, at least not under that namesake.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too much to handle. It's like trying to juggle more than one name is kind of tough, and
it is tough. I know I've got that same problem, and it's difficult. It really is.
So just Facebook under Stephan Knox, and if you want to find anything else, and you have to go to www.talon-ps.com, and then you can find out about Stephan and everything that the twins write. So, which I'm one of the twins.
Cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
For talking with me, and your book it's epic. It's wonderful. I want everybody to read it, and I guess that's it. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. I look forward to your review.
Thank you, hon.
Right. Hey everybody.
Bye-bye.